Welcome back to the Boston Sports Summit presented by the Grit Network. I'm your host, Tim Barnett. And man, is it good to be back. And what I mean by back is that the Celtics, they're the champs. Banner 18 is going to be hanging in the rafters this fall. As you can see behind me, I got all the merch, the gear, even got some of the hats too. You know, got the on-court hat. Even got my own Celtics hat, which is awesome because it's got the championship patch on the side. So it's just been great. It's been good. But we're back. It's time to get back to, real life. It's time to get back to the rest of the Boston sports community because we've been hung up on the Celtics. I mean, let's look. How can you not be hung up on the Celtics, right? So let's start off. Let's get back to where things are going. Going to put on the good old Red Sox jersey. All right, champ still going to be underneath, but it's time to get back and swing things. And that's right. This is the David Ortiz 04 jersey. Can't beat it. David Ortiz, most clutch hitter in baseball history, especially in Red Sox history. But it's time to talk some baseball, right? We have the Red Sox, who I've been saying for quite some time that this team, I've been wanting this team to just flat out tank because John Henry won't spend, and don't get me wrong, I will get to John Henry's Financial Times article in just a few minutes, but John Henry won't spend. The Red Sox are being more analytical. They're not, talky. They're not trying to bring in big name free agents. And then, of course, they love to go out of their way to be like, well, look, we tried. It's like, no, you didn't. Come on. We're not a dumb fan base. We're not Cincinnati. We're not Tampa. We're not Oakland. You know what I mean? So that's why, I was like, listen, John Henry doesn't want to spend. Cool. Let's tank for the third time in 4 years and force him to spend. That was my whole momentum going into this. But now with this team and this past June, now don't get me wrong, June has been a very good month for Boston, but the way this team has been playing, they're fun. They're top 5 in stolen bases in the league. They are second in baseball with triples. They're too shy. I think it's Tampa of who they're behind for triples. This is a fun team. And I've really enjoyed watching them, it's this past month. The early part of the month, yeah, you can see a bunch of scrubs, bunch of bums. What are we doing here? It's just a typical Tampa, Oakland type of team. Just a garbage team, garbage players, young players. I should say all garbage, but young, some garbage players. But this past month, they are 14-8. And since 2019, in the month of June, they are 80-51. Now it's pretty good. I've really enjoyed watching them play because of how they've been doing. Right? The way they've been going at it, the way they've been attacking it, and especially the last 2 weeks, they have played they went back-to-back playing the two best teams in baseball in Philly and the Yankees, and they won both the series. And then they swept the Blue Jays, went on to beat Cincinnati 2 out of 3 games, and now they are 1-1 against the Blue Jays. The reason why they've done that is because they're aggressive. They are fast. I mean, you got guys like David Hamilton, Jarren Duran. Jarren Duran against Cincinnati, which I will say, he was lights out the last 2 weeks. Absolutely lights out. And I'll get to him, his stats in just a minute. But when they played that game, I want to say it was game 2 against Cincinnati, where the ball was hit into foul territory, shallow left field, and Jarren Duran tagged up from third and scored, was wild. And the funniest part about it was on Twitter, the Nesson Twitter account, tweeted out that Jaren Durant steals home again. And I watched the replay and I'm like, where did he steal? Rafael Devers popped it up. It went into foul territory, and then he tagged up. So I literally commented that he didn't steal home. He tagged up. And the NESN Twitter account about 20 minutes later took down the whole post, which made me laugh. I went, how are you working for NESN as a social media person and don't understand baseball? Like, it's like, hello, come on, McFly. Like, what are we doing here? But Jaren Durant is an absolute all-star. The fact that he's not being considered to be an all-star, meaning he's not high up in the voting to be an all-star, I totally understand, because let's face it, the way John Henry has dismantled this organization, this team since 2018, fans just don't want to pay attention anymore. Like, we don't, because it's how can we sit there and wrap ourselves in it? You know, that's kind of a bit, that's an issue for me, right? You know, you can't, that's why we as Red Sox fans don't go out and vote anymore. Jaren Durant should be, but isn't considered an all-star, because Jaren Durant's stats in the month of June, he's batting .375. He's got 36 hits, 4 homers, 14 RBIs, and 23 runs. That's of last night. Like, that's wild to me. This dude has really been lights out, and he's been really electric, really fun to watch. That same game he tagged up from third that I got NESN to take down their tweet. He also robbed a home run in the top of the ninth, or bottom of the ninth. You know, with 1 out, ball is hit to dead center field. He leaps up, grabs it, brings it back in, makes the second out, and then the Red Sox went on to win that game. So it's been just a really good team, and I think this team is really starting to, I think, show me something. And speaking of Jaren Durant, Bryson Carver of the Carving It Up podcast here on the Grid Network. If you guys haven't checked it out, you really should. He talks everything sports. He's also a big Red Sox fan. Bryson comments, Jaren Durant is an all-star. Good day, sir. Facts. He is. I truly believe Jaren Durant should be an all-star, with not only just this past month, but with him all season long. He has been really one of the biggest bright spots for the Red Sox. And I'm looking at Durant, and I'm looking at some of these other guys, and I'm wondering to myself, is the future of the Red Sox taking shape? You know, like, because the Red Sox have the 7th youngest hitters in baseball. In other words, every player that's come up to bat this past season, when you do out all the averages, Boston is the 7th youngest team. Okay, and that's just for hitters. But then when you look at some of the guys who are 28 and younger, you have David Hamilton, Jaren Durant, Ceddanne Rafaela, Connor Wong, and obviously Rafael Devers, who Devers is locked up long-term. So that's where I get to sit there and I'm like, wow, we have a young team, not to mention guys like Kyle Teal, guys like Marcelo Meyer, who are rising up the ranks right now. You know, a lot of the guys in Portland right now are looking to be not only just major league contributors, but possibly future stars. So I don't like, the future is starting to look bright. And I'm not, one to really sit here and talk about the future, because to me, it's not about the future. It's about right here, right now. Are we on our way to play, getting to the playoffs, and not just getting to the playoffs? Because I'm not the type of guy who, I'm good if we just get to the playoffs. No, I want to contend. Like, I want us to be legit contenders. And that's where I think John Henry definitely doesn't understand what it means to be a fan, or he's lost that fandom in him. But a little more on that later, just because of the way he views it. Because right now, the Red Sox, for the last 2 years, post 2021, which I think we all can admit that was a fluke year, the Red Sox have been a 4-8 team developing players rather than developing players in the minors and then bringing them up when they're major league ready. Jarren Duran is a perfect example of that. 2 years ago, the guy had no idea how to track a fly ball. I mean, we all remember that time where he just stood there in shallow left field or center field, just staring out, going, "Where is it?" And the ball was 10 feet to the right behind him. It was like, how are you up here right now? Which is wild. Like that, he should have never been called up when he was. But the Red Sox just never went out. They never spent. They never grabbed a guy. So yeah, that's why Jarren Duran came up so early. But there is a big thing going on, I want to say tiff going on with the Red Sox. And it's between Alex Cora and upper management, basically, in the front office. Because Cora is a baseball guy. He is. I am a baseball guy. I understand the game. I don't understand the game to Alex Cora's level. I'm not going to try to say that Cora and I, have the same view of the game. Obviously not. He played, he won. Come on. But you have guys like Craig Breslow, guys like basically the whole front office, who are all nerds, analytics. And this is why I've been saying forever, we need to get nerds out of sports. Nerds! 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 Thank you, Ogre. I couldn't have said it better myself. But, it's crazy to me that you have all these guys who are trying to change the way the game is played. And they're successful in changing the game, but that doesn't mean that they are successful in winning. This patch is on here for a reason. And it wasn't because we were cheap. We tried to, play this analytic BS. No, we did this. We earned this patch because we won. We came through in the clutch. The big moments our guys were prepared for. That's what this patch represents. And that's why the title of the show is Overcoming the Odds. Because this patch is a great example of why nerds will never understand. When the Red Sox in 2004 were down 3-0, every single nerd out there would have been like, don't even bother. Let's pack up. Let's go home, because there's no way. And with the odds getting ever increasingly worse, because Mariano Rivera comes in Game 4 with a 1-run lead in the bottom of the 9th, and he walks. Kevin Millar steps up to the plate. At that moment, the Yankees were projected to win. Probably what, like a 95% chance to win, something extremely high, and not for nothing, rightfully so, after kicking our ass in Game 3, 19-8. Kevin Millar gets up to the plate facing the best closer of that era. And the stats, the nerds, everything would have pointed to pack up, go home. You lost. Let's come back and win in 2005. That's what the nerds say. But no, Kevin Millar walked. He gets to first. The projected win value goes down probably just like a trickle. Dave Roberts comes in. he steals second. Comes down a little bit more. Then Bill Miller, who has owned Mariano Rivera in his career, then obviously gets the single. Dave Roberts scores from second. The rest is obviously history. But you don't get that. When you're looking at a game analytically, you don't. That's why I am like ogre. Nerd! When people start trying to talk about numbers and sports, trying to relate the projections and how a game is going to turn out. I mean, hell, a perfect example of that, 28-3. Overcoming the odds. Atlanta had a 99.6 or something, 99.3% chance to win that game. Do you think the nerds, would have bet on Tom Brady to come back? Absolutely not. Sports are all about overcoming the odds. And when you have guys like Alex Cora who are trying to defend baseball and what the game represents, you're fighting an uphill battle because unfortunately, Craig Breslow has his team of nerds, and they are watching the games analytically. They're trying to figure out what to do with this team because right now, the Red Sox have been unbelievable. What they have done, going 8-2 over their last 10, going 10-3 in their last 13, has propelled them to be in the wild card if the playoffs started today. They are a half game back from the Twins, and they own a half game on the Royals. So the Red Sox, as it stands, are in the playoffs, which is great, which is awesome. Like, you're sitting there going, wow, I did not expect that from this team. Clearly, I am one of the big guys who was flat out against this team from the get-go because I wanted them to finish last in spite of ownership. It's not because I hated the Red Sox, and I've said that time and time again. It's because I wanted them to finish last 3 out of 4 years in spite of the way John Henry has run this team. So right now, the Red Sox are sitting pretty. They are in the wild card spot. It's looking good. They're playing well. Yeah, you know what? They did lose last night. Brian Bayo had a really tough outing. He had the shortest outing of his career, going 2 1/3. But the team is still overall has looked good. That come from behind win on what's today? Wednesday, on Monday night was I thought they were going to lose. Down 6-2 in the 8th inning, and they figured out a way to tie the game. That's a fun team right there because you can't ever count them out. That is overcoming the odds. But when Craig Breslow went on Nesson Monday night to discuss what their thoughts are with the trade deadline coming up. I'm going to play you a clip of what Breslow had to say because I want you to pay attention to the words that he uses because I think what he's saying is opening up the doorway for us to figure out what Breslow wants to do come the trade deadline. So here it is. Take a listen. And like I said, keep your ears open.
Brings up a good point, Craig, because the way the club has played to this point, does it push you to a different level of consciousness about what's going to happen to make the team better? I imagine it does. Do you look at a starting pitcher? You look at a right-hand bat? What are you starting to look at?
Yeah, I think we're currently still evaluating. We may have been having a very different conversation 2 or 3 weeks ago, but it's a credit to these guys who have shown up and played and shown a ton of resiliency, battling injuries, overcoming lengthy, trips on the IL, and it's a credit to these guys. Obviously, we have to figure out what lane there is to pick come the deadline, but I think there are a ton of Alex talks all the time about the great vibes around the team, and I think.
Did you catch that? Because I think what Breslow was saying was, number one, he said, well, we would have had a very different conversation if this was 2 to 3 weeks prior. Well, why did you even bring that up? That's my first thought, was why did you even bring up the fact that, oh, well, yeah, now they're playing good, but 2 to 3 weeks ago, we would have been having a very different conversation about the Red Sox. Well, why? Why? What is it? Why is it so important to you? Are you looking at it from a nerd aspect? Because I think you are. Because when he says something like that, we would have had a very different conversation 2 to 3 weeks ago. You're sitting there thinking to yourself, well, if he believes that, right? If he believes that the conversation would have been very different, that means what he's currently watching that I'm excited about, I think a lot of Red Sox Nation has been excited over. He's looking at it going, oh, well, you know what? Hey, it happens. We go on runs, but overall, the team still sucks. That's how Craig Breslow is looking at this. And I don't understand why. Oh, well, actually, I shouldn't say that. I know why he's looking at it like that, because he's looking at the numbers. He's looking at the fact that, oh, well, they've been doing so well that, you know what, there's going to be a downward trend. There is a regression to the mean, right? And that is what's so infuriating about these damn nerds. Nerds! Come on. Can't you have fun? Can't you look at this and be like, hey, if the playoffs started today, we would be in there. We would have a 1-game playoff against Minnesota. And then if we won that, we would have the opportunity to go on to maybe play more games. But no, they're so focused on these effing numbers. And I'll tell you, this is why I hate nerds, especially when they're infiltrating my kingdom, which is sports. There is a reason why the nerds stuck to their calculators and their pocket squares with all their pens in school, and then you had all the jocks going out playing sports, doing X, Y, and Z, track, football, baseball, basketball, all the other sports. There is a reason why they were separate. It's because you have instances like this. And I hate to admit it, but the nerds have figured out a way to infiltrate our sports. And while it's nice when you look at it from the perspective of, okay, numbers can help, you can't look at it from the understanding that we live in an expected world, which is a Joe Mazzulla quote unquote. We live in an expected world. I'm sorry, Joe. We don't. That's how all the nerds and all the analysts think. But when you're talking about situations in sports, again, it's all about overcoming the odds. Do you think that the Miami Heat, we're going to lay down because a number 8 seed has only beaten the number 1 seed in the NBA playoffs like maybe 3 times in the history of the NBA? No. Last season, the number 8 seed Heat went all the way to the NBA Finals. Do you think that they looked at the numbers and were like, oh, well, we're the 8th seed, so, it's great that we're here, but whatever, we're gonna lie down. No, that's not how this works. That's not how sports work. And the beauty of it is I get to mix both the Red Sox and Breslow and the trade deadline with my hatred towards analytics, towards numbers, towards nerds. It's a perfect blend because I'm sitting there listening to Breslow say, which here it is one more time. I do want one more time. It's going to be quicker, but listen to what the words he says because it's so asinine to me.
We may have been having a very different conversation 2 or 3 weeks ago, but it's a credit to these guys who have shown up and played and shown a ton of resiliency, battling injuries, overcoming lengthy, trips on the IL, and it's a credit to these guys. Obviously, we have to figure out what lane there is to pick come the deadline.
He's talking about all the guys going on IL, and the rest of the players who've stepped in have stepped up. The next man up mentality. That's what this Red Sox team has done. That's why I feel like they've been entertaining the way they have. And yet he's looking at it going, oh, well, we're going to get guys back from the IL. This team has projected to be average. And yeah, they're performing out of their cleats right now, but it'll all come back. And not for nothing, he does have a point. Because over the last 2 years, the Red Sox in 2022 had their best record of 42-31 on June 26th, which is today, 2 years ago. Their remaining games, they went 36-53 and finished 78-84. Last year, the Red Sox had a best 56-47 as of July 28th, and their remaining games finished going 22-37, finishing 78-84. And now we're sitting here with a record of 43-36, which is a +7 over 500. And he's looking at it like, oh, well, it's only a matter of time before we end up 78-84 again. Which, if memory serves, the Red Sox did nothing at those trade deadlines. They did absolutely jack because Chaim Bloom was scared, for lack of a better word. He was a puss, just had no balls, no cojones to him. And with Breslow kind of reiterating the same points Bloom would, I would love now to see Boston go on this run through the whole month of July, be in contention with the Orioles. They're only 6.5 games back of the O's. If the Red Sox could somehow be 1 game back, half a game back, or even up at any point on the O's, I would love to see Craig Breslow talk about how he's going to pick a lane, which is they're going to do jack. They're going to be like, oh, look, we got Tristan Casas off the IL or DL, whatever it is. We got Tristan Casas back. We got so-and-so back from the injured list. All of these things. And yet they're going to, and that's going to be trades to them, which it's not. Which Chaim Bloom made the same excuse the last 2 years, and he got fired for it. And rightfully so. Like, I'm sorry, to all the Bloom, people, he was a bum. And nerds or analytics definitely had a role in it. But I swear, Craig Breslow is saying the same thing. He's giving us the same thought process. And that's why, not for nothing, I'm back, baby. I'm back on the let's go Sox, baby. Let's go Sox. Let's win out. Let's just be this team that keeps winning series after series after series, because I would love to see Craig Breslow have to walk down to that locker room and say to the guys, yeah, we didn't think you were good enough. That's why we didn't invest in today. We didn't want to give up our future, because the remaining games that I showed you, this is exactly what's going to happen. Alex Cora is basically going to tell the team, you know what? They didn't invest in you, so F them. Let's lose out because there's no hope. There's no reason to. And then Cora is going to go on and be a manager for the Yankees, the Dodgers, a team that is ready to win right now. Because that's what he is. Cora's a great manager when he's given a team that is championship ready, that is playoff contender year after year after year. And that's what he had here. But then John Henry had to go be a cheap bastard. And speaking of John Henry, I read the Financial Times article, and it just absolutely blew my mind how stupid that man is. Because the amount of times this interviewer, Sarah Germano, first of all, started off the article talking about the being so descriptive of the beauty, like of John Henry dressing in the nice suit, like the way she was so descriptive of it. Oh my God, talk about nauseating. But the 9th paragraph in, there were 2 quotes there that I want to talk about, which was, quote, "He agreed to spend some time with me in person on the condition he not be quoted directly, instead answering all questions by email." So it's one thing to be put on the record right then and there. Whatever comes to your mind is what's coming out of your mouth. And yeah, sometimes being that quick will get you in trouble. So you mean to tell me that he was responding everything by email and he still found ways to be so insensitive, so stupid towards his fan base? Like, dude, you had the PR guys, if not looking over your shoulder or reading what you wrote afterwards, they were writing the damn things for you. And you still found plenty of ways to piss us off as fans. You know, he sounded, honestly, like such an arrogant prick that you could argue that his words were taken out of context if it were in person. You know, saying that the Red Sox, fans don't understand that it's 1-20, 1-30, that quote, which I'll get to in just a minute. You could argue that, oh, well, he said it face to face. Maybe she didn't hear it correctly. Maybe she misquoted him. Nope. It was all typed up via email. So he knew exactly what he was saying. And like, that's what's so funny. Like, I sit back and I'm just like, wow, this guy clearly doesn't get it. And then the other quote that I want to talk about in that same paragraph was, quote, "Watched as one of the best known but least understood owners in modern sports got back to work hammering out terms of his next reinvention bid, i.e. the PGA." And I want to talk about that because the whole article was obviously talking about, oh, well, John, he's misunderstood. He's always been a big sports fan. He's, they had his friggin' childhood, how he made his money, this, that, and the other. And I'm sitting there reading it going, like, I don't care. And yeah, I came in with 100% preconceived bias. I have no problem talking about that. But when you're talking about John Henry is best known but least understood, I don't know how you could get any more understood, or any more well-known by buying the Boston Red Sox, going in, spending all this cash, determined to win, telling everybody that, hey, we're trying to win year after year after year, just to then have the best team in Red Sox history. And then you're like, the best player, the superstar, Mookie Betts, nah, you're too rich. You're not going to be worth it in the long term, even though the guy was 28, 29, 30. Like, that was unbelievable how he just dismantled the best team in Red Sox history. It's almost like Mookie Betts is Babe Ruth 2.0, modern era. I hope not, because that would mean another 86 years. And unfortunately, John Henry hopefully will sell the team, if not give away the team, if you know what I mean. But then obviously the article goes on. John Henry was more concerned about getting other owners to invest in the PGA at the owners' meetings rather than, talk baseball. Like, seriously? You're at the owners' meetings while everyone is trying to figure out, like, what's best for the game, how are we going to move on, how are we going to make it so that the younger generation wants to watch, it's going to stay interested. No, he's like, hey, do you want to invest in the PGA? Do you want to invest in the PGA? Do you want to invest in the PGA? Scumbag. And the irony was that in the article, it was known that golf is not one of John Henry's hobbies. So he's just a cheap hoarder, basically, when it comes to this. And I will say, too, Sarah Germano, I'm sorry, but this comment that you wrote, which is 100% you, saying, quote, seated in a midtown skyscraper with half a dozen of his fellow billionaires, dash, all men, comma, all American, dash, at the MLB meeting. You did not have to throw that in there. I'm sorry. That is so ridiculous. I was expecting, too, for you to write all white because I hate that stuff. When you try to identify people like that, get out of my face. All right? That was so unnecessary to the article that you are useless. Okay, Sarah, you just absolute useless having to throw that in there. All men, all American. Spare me your nonsense. So obviously it goes on, but really two of the biggest things that, of course, it came from John Henry directly. Quote, FSG grew and diversified. The perception that it is made up of business people first and sports fans second has gained traction. Henry disputes this, saying, quote, having spent a lot of time with fellow sports owners, he says, quote, most of them feel responsible to their communities to bring championships, end quote. And I call bull. The amount of times I have seen these owners, and I'm not just talking about John, I'm talking about owners as a whole. The amount of times I've seen these owners and they're sitting there on their high horse, just being like, yeah, I'm good. I don't need to win every single year. And you can tell by the moves or lack of moves that they make. Just all the instances. Like Oakland, great example. Basically my entire life, the Oakland A's have been irrelevant and have done absolutely nothing to want to win, right? I mean, you could argue that the owners not giving a damn about winning and always focused on money. You can go all the way back to the 1919 Black Sox, where the Black Sox, the White Sox, nicknamed the Black Sox, the White Sox allegedly threw the World Series because the owner was a cheap bastard who wouldn't pay his guys. And to some degree, I don't blame him. Now, the fact that Shoeless Joe Jackson is quoted as being a part of that scandal is, I think, absolutely asinine due to the fact that he batted like over 430 for the series, like absolutely crushed it, had no errors, and yet his name has been run through the mud for the last 105 years. That I think is one of the biggest travesties in baseball. But that's where I'm like, I call BS. John Henry being like, well, I've spent time with a lot of them, and they feel an obligation, a responsibility to bring a championship to their town. Bull. There are a few owners that feel responsible to bring a championship to their town, but not all. Definitely not all. They just enjoy being owners. That's it. Then the second quote, because fans expect championships almost annually, he wrote, they easily become frustrated and are not going to buy into what the odds actually are, 1 in 20 or 1 in 30. And that is the most dumb comment I have ever heard in my life, because clearly you don't understand sports. Because if you have one of the best rosters in the game, your odds are not 1 in 30, my friend. They are not. They are 1 in 5, 1 in 10, no more than 1 in 12 tops. Same thing goes to the Premier League. I don't know how many teams there are in the Premier League. I know it fluctuates year after year. The number stays the same, but the teams go in and out. To win those leagues, again, if you get the best players to play for your franchise, the odds are not 1 in 30, my friend. The odds are not 1 in 20. And you're also putting the blame on us as fans, saying we expect championships annually. No, I don't expect championships annually. I expect us to compete for championships annually. You know, like with what the Bruins have done, I think they know how to blow it. They know how to blow it, but they are in the playoffs year after year. This last year, I thought they were going to suck, but they didn't. And so they are competing. Now, this was like probably, I would argue, the first year where I thought truly that they weren't going to compete for a championship, that they needed to do more. But the team overcame the odds, and that's how, and they proved me wrong. It sucked that they lost in the second round, but they proved me wrong. And then, of course, lastly, we generally don't sell assets. And I'm sorry, but if you want to claim to be a sports fan from today for the rest of your life, you've absolutely disqualified yourself from doing that, John. Because by saying that we generally don't sell assets is not how a fan would talk. Is not how an owner who is a fan of their team would talk. No, it is, I am not going to sell my team. I love this team. I am a fan. But to say instead, we generally don't sell assets, meaning that you look at this team as an asset to your business portfolio, which I think is bull. Like, I think you should sell off every single team that you own because you're a cheap bastard and you don't deserve to own a team. That's the other thing too. I want an owner who wants to be an owner, who not wants to be an owner because they have the money. No. They want to be an owner because they love this team. They are all for being an owner. And that's where, like, I want my owners to be fans. You know, something as simple as even this old ad from Nextel. Like, again, talk about how simple everything would be, right?
All right, firefighters, settle down. How about the budget?
All right, well.
All right, firefighters, settle down.
For some reason, it doesn't work.
How about the budget?
Balances.
And the taxes.
What page you list?
Anyone want better roads?
We do.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Done. A lot of paper to tell us we need clean water. Need clean water, guys? Aye. All right, this is the easiest job I've ever had. We're out of here.
That's it. You would think that the fans could do something like this. Unfortunately, you have Green Bay as the example, but they really aren't run by fans, obviously. But no, it's just it's that type of, I feel like, mentality kind of, where all the fans are coming in. They're like, all right, we need to do this, this, and this. All right, we're done. Let's move on. Like, we got it. How are we going to make this team better? We're going to go out. We're going to re-sign Mookie Betts. We're going to go out. We're going to sign Shohei Ohtani. We're going to get the Japanese pitcher, Yoshiba Yamamoto. Done. Yep. Aye. Everybody. You know what I mean? Just kind of dumb, stupid like that. But it's just wild to me. I don't know. John Henry, get out of my face. If I never see or hear about John Henry for the rest of my life, it'll be too soon. But moving on from the Let's Go Red Sox, Tom Warner, we got the Bruins. All right. Their big move that they made is that they traded Linus Ullmark on Monday night for the 2024 first overall draft pick, which is the 25th overall, which ironically was the Bruins' former draft pick, as well as taking on Jonas Capasalo and Mark Kastelik. Now, I did go on to Instagram and YouTube and talk about this because it pissed me off in the moment, and I've had about almost 48 hours to think it over, and I still hate this deal. I do. I still hate this deal because I understand trading Ullmark, and I've been proponent number one of saying trade Ullmark, get him off the books. We are done, with $5 million to a backup goaltender. Now you bring in a fourth line big body in Mark Kastelik, who is a center who allegedly is good at winning faceoffs. I really don't know much. I mean, I've looked him up a little bit, but again, it's not like I've watched Ottawa Senator hockey over the last couple of years, but he's 25, which I do like. But then you bring in Jonas Capasalo, who was the worst goaltender in hockey last year, posted an .890 save percentage, has only posted a 900 or above save percentage once in the last 5 years, I think, and had the worst goals against average last year. So, and to top it off, it's going to cost us $3 million for the next 4 years. He is in a free agent until 2028. And while I love the fact that we brought in a first-round pick, I'm sorry. There is absolutely no reason to have made that deal because the Bruins have Brandon Bussi. I don't know how to say his name. I think it's Bussi, but the Bruins have Brandon Bussi at a 1-year, $875,000 contract. Great. Have him as the backup. Let him get 20 games this year because I want to see how this kid does. Goalie Bob is supposed to be a great goalie coach. And do we really think that he can resurrect Korpisalo's career? I mean, the guy's 30 years old. He's technically in his prime as a goaltender. But last year, he sucked. And I think you're asking a lot of goalie Bob right there. And the worst part about it was Fluto Shizawa came out yesterday and said that the Bruins have no intention of trading Korpisalo or buying him out, which would have cost them, I think, $1.3 million for the next 8 years. Fine, good. That's $2.7 million. No, that's $1.7 million cleared off our books. I'm good with that. Like that's what it should be. But no, the Bruins are like, we can resurrect his career and then what? Trade him? Clearly, you had a hard enough time trading former Vezina winner Linus Ullmark, and that's not because he had a no-trade clause. Like, it's so asinine to me. Don Sweeney seems to be making move after move. But then when it comes to this, I just sit back and I'm like, what are we doing? We don't need a backup goaltender, let alone a backup goaltender worth $3 million. I don't care that it only accounts for 2%, right? Against the salary cap. Here, let's look at the numbers, right? So if the salary cap is $88 million and he costs $3 million, so if you do 88 or 3 over 88, that rounds out to 3.4% of the salary cap. Fine. It's 3.4% of the salary cap. It's also 3.4% of the salary cap. Too much. Too much. I feel like Don just gave in. He had an opportunity to trade Linus Ullmark last year directly after he won the Vezina. But no one would bite. And I feel like that's because the rest of the league looks at Don Sweeney like they can pull one over on him. And clearly, I think that's what happened. Because it's not just me, but it's the rest of the hockey community that is stunned by this deal. Stunned. And I think the Bruins are going to be asking way too much of goalie Bob to try to sit there and say that, Jonas, here's our guy, learn from him, and you will be a future Vezina winner yourself. Which I think is just dumb. I think it's terrible. It's stupid. And it just, I mean, hell, you had the Ottawa Senators talking about buying out Korpisalo during the season, this past season. And they just signed this guy. They just signed Korpisalo, and they were talking about already buying him out 1 year into his deal. It's crazy to me. And I heard this phrase, and I thought it was a good one. Because with everything that's gone on with the Bruins, and over the last couple of years, having Ullmark, having Swayman, doing the goalie hug, having two starters for goalies, you know, I heard this phrase, which I thought was perfect. A good backup goalie increases your floor, but it does absolutely nothing for you in the playoffs. And this year, more than ever, I think pointed that out. This year, more than ever, pointed out the fact that, yeah, while we were right there with a team and a roster that, you know what, probably didn't deserve to be the number 2 seed just based on names and expected outcomes, because we lost Bergeron, we lost Krejci. Chara's been gone for a few years. It's the expected outcome looked bleak, but yet they overcame the odds to be the number 2 seed in the Atlantic Division. And had it been for actually a couple bad calls, the Bruins, I think, could have beaten and could have, won the series against the Florida Panthers if the refs would have actually called everything down the middle, if the NHL actually punished Sam Bennett for that illegal punch to Brad Marchand. But, hey, I digress, right? So sending Ullmark to Ottawa doesn't scare me, but the fact that, there was so much talk about getting Jacob Chikrin and a number 1 overall pick, to then come out with that, Don, dude, you got either Don got fleeced, or the rest of or myself, Bruins fans, and even the journalists out there were looking at this deal like we were overvaluing Linus Ullmark. And not for nothing, who else is Ottawa going to get? And I actually would have been okay doing 1 more year. But here's the kicker, though. I need to know what these trades were before I can even sit here and confidently tell you that, yeah, you know what? I'm good with sticking with Linus for another year. I'm good with that. Even though it's $5 million, even though, whatever, I'm good with it. I would have had to known what this deal was, and I don't think I ever would have. Had Don Sweeney said no to it, I would have never known what this deal was. So, that's the other thing. And then, so obviously, Ullmark is in Ottawa. Bad deal. Bruins got fleeced. I hate it. And I hope that this 25th overall pick turns out to be not only a stud, but a superstar, a franchise guy. Maybe that will make the deal better. But if it doesn't, then Don, I'm sorry, deservedly should be fired. And that the Bruins, I can safely tell you right here, right now, the Bruins made the wrong decision sticking with Sweeney and Neely over Bruce Cassidy. Straight up. Straight up. And then lastly, we're going to talk some Patriots because Rhamondre Stevenson signed an extension. Now, he signed a 4-year, $36 million deal that can be worth up to, I think, $42 million with incentives, and he's got 17 of his 36 guaranteed. Now, does he deserve it? Is he the bell cow that deal says he is? And I don't believe I don't believe it. I don't believe that he is that bell cow because he is never ranked in top 5 in running back carries. He's never ranked in top 5 in running backs, but he is the 5th highest paid running back in the NFL right now. Now, he had almost 70 catches a couple years back, but he's never been that bell cow. He's never been that Derrick Henry, that Christian McCaffrey. And that's why I sit there and I go, well, why are we paying this dude? Because we're spending $9 million of, which is still $9 million of a payroll that is still the lowest in the league. They still have the lowest payroll in the league, but yet we're focusing $9 million now to a position, mind you, that is basically dead in the sport of football because Bill Belichick, I think, kind of started this without – I mean, he knew what he was doing, but I think he started a trend without really knowing that unless you have a Derrick Henry or a Christian McCaffrey or a prime Zeke Elliott, there is no reason to overpay running backs. There is no reason to pay these high prices for, while talented, running backs that in a world where basically what the NFL wants the running back to do now is run routes, whether it's lining up on the outside, lining up next to the quarterback, lining up in the slot, either do those or stay back in the pocket and block for the quarterback. If you can't do that as a running back, you're not going to succeed in the NFL. Now you can go out and obviously make some money by running up the A gap, B gap, C gap, but you're not going to last long because you're not going to get all the carries you think you should get because the game isn't running anymore. I mean, it's common for quarterbacks to throw 40, 50 times a game. That's never happened before. The game was never like this. And if you're relying on quarterbacks like Daniel Jones, like Tua, to throw 40, 50 times a game, there's something wrong. There is something very wrong, either with football or with your team. And I would say it's a little bit of both. Because I don't believe that quarterbacks should be throwing 40, 50 times every single week for 17 weeks. But I also don't believe that those types of quarterbacks, which is, I would argue there are about at least half the quarterbacks starting quarterbacks in the league should never throw 40, 30, 40, 50 times in a game. So with Rhamondre signing his extension, from his perspective, good for you, kid. Go out, get your money. You're the Patriots' number 1 running back. There's no doubt about that. But from a team perspective, I think it's just stupid. I think that they have gone over the top when it comes to paying their own. Because Bill Belichick, I've said this before on this show, he hadn't signed a player that he's drafted in the top 3 rounds in over 10 years. And now, under a new regime, that's all we're basically doing is re-signing our guys, some of which have been overpaid. Not all, but some. So the Patriots are just, I don't know. I mean, training camps are going to be starting up. They just released the dates for training camp. I think it's going to start up July 22nd, I think, and everyone's reporting on the 23rd, something to that effect. But yeah, it's going to be interesting. You know, I'm really excited to see what Drake May can do. Can he beat out Jacoby Brissett? Is it worth him beating out Jacoby Brissett? I don't know. I think that's kind of the crazy part because you could go either way with this. And do you trust the coordinator? Do you trust Alex Van Pelt? Do you trust the coaching staff, the quarterback coach, the quarterback assistant, the offensive assistant coach, Ben McAdoo? You know, I talked about that a couple weeks ago. But, yeah, it's just it's interesting to see what's going on in Foxborough. But right now, the only team that matters in terms of their future are the Celtics. And with this championship, I saw Steve Buckley ranked his champions over the last 24 years because, in case you don't remember, there was an article that came out in the Boston Globe on December 12th or 13th of 2000 that called Boston Loserville. Welcome to Loserville. And it obviously had the coaches of all four sports, Bill Belichick being one of them, which is kind of funny because he just finished his first year in New England. But then all of a sudden, things changed. And we went from being Loserville into Titletown. And when I saw Buckley's article of ranking the championships, I was like, you know what? I want to do that because I was 9 years old when I saw the Patriots win in 01. And I've seen every single championship. I've watched every single season. That's really what made me a big sports fan and really gave me this love of Boston sports, love of, you know, just being a Boston fan. Now, of course, you could argue that, oh, well, you've never been through, the most miserable moments. Well, actually, I beg to differ on that. Aaron Boone, 07, 11, 19 with the Bruins. Trust me, I've seen my fair share of bad moments. But, if we're talking like, being part of the fellowship of the miserable, with Red Sox fans and being Boston, you're right. I grew up being spoiled. There's no two ways about it. But at the same time, I wanted to rank these championships myself. Now, I will say, there are probably some interesting positions, but I think generally this is probably how I feel. If, I'm ranking these teams' championships by a few things. The title's importance, meaning like the history, the importance to the city, talking about the game or the series. Also, I'm ranking it based on the team and how fun that team was. Now, obviously, there are going to be some outliers. There is some, you could say recency bias. There are some moments that surpass others. There are moments where you're like, that shouldn't be ranked there. Let me know. Comment below what you think of these rankings. But here it is. I started off with the 2004 Red Sox because at the end of the day, the 04 Red Sox, this championship, not only did they come back from being down 3-0 against the evil empire of the New York Yankees, but they also broke the curse of the Bambino. 86 years, that was it. That team meant the world to Boston sports. If it wasn't for that, then the 0-1 Pats would have absolutely been number one because they are the team that kicked off Titletown. That is why the 0-1 Pats are number two in my book. I have the 2013 Boston Red Sox because the 2013 Red Sox were a fun team. Fear the Beard, Mike Napoli, Johnny Hacksaw Gomes, Dustin Pedroia, all those guys were John Lester, just a great group of guys, really fun to watch. 2 years removed from obviously the chicken and beer incident. Then you had obviously the marathon day, the marathon bombing, which just broke all our hearts, which I still can't believe to this day. But they took all those emotions and channeled it into a championship with David Ortiz winning his last title with the Red Sox in 2013. It was an emotional championship. That's why, to me, the 2013 team has to be number three behind the 04 Red Sox and behind the 01 Pats. Next, I have the 2014 Patriots, Super Bowl 39, Malcolm Butler's interception. Can't beat it. 2016 Patriots I have as number 5 because even though the game was wildly one-sided in the beginning and then one-sided at the end, and that being the first Super Bowl that went into overtime, I think that the Malcolm Butler game, Super Bowl 49, Super Bowl 39, we beat Philly. That's behind me. Super Bowl 49, I think, was probably the perfect epitome of the perfect game. It was back and forth. New England pushed ahead. Seattle fought back. Seattle pushed ahead, got up by 10, and then Tom Brady led 2 championship drives just to have Seattle at the 2-yard line, and Malcolm Butler coming out of nowhere, an undrafted, unheralded free agent, making the game-saving interception to give the Patriots their first championship in 10 years. I mean, that story to me is unbelievable. And again, overcoming the odds. Malcolm Butler overcame the odds playing at West Alabama, being an undrafted free agent, to make the biggest play of his career, which springboarded, I would argue, a halfway decent career. He definitely deserved to be the number 1 corner for the next few years. But it was just, that game I think was better just from the sheer standpoint of it being back and forth. Seattle had the unbelievable defense, the Legion of Boom. New England, tough defense. Tom Brady, the GOAT, winning his 4th ring, tying Joe Montana and Terry Bradshaw. Then you have the 2016 championship, which was dead on arrival. I thought I was just dead. Like that at halftime, I had to force myself to go talk to people at the Super Bowl party I was at, because I was so devastated being down 21-3 at the half. Then for Atlanta to go up 28-3 on the first drive out of halftime, it was just like gut check. Like, there's no way. But in the infamous words of Games with Name podcast, Julian Edelman, former Patriot wide receiver, soon to be Patriot Hall of Famer. There's no better story. It's going to be a hell of a story. Julian Edelman, quote for quote. And it was a hell of a story. Them coming back, them overcoming the odds, because analytics be damned. Analytics do not understand sports. So that's why I got 14, then 16, then the 07 Red Sox. I just love that 07 Red Sox team. Josh Beckett, Mike Lowell, Jonathan Papelbon. Just a fun team. Then I got the 10-11 Bruins, because there is no harder championship to win than the Stanley Cup. And with where the Bruins had come from to them winning the Cup, Tim Thomas standing on his head. That team of Bergeron, Chara, Marchand as a rookie, Tyler Seguin as a rookie, Andrew Ference flipping off all of Montreal at the Bell Center. I love that image. One of the best images in the NHL annals of history in the NHL. But that was just such a fun team. And what a hell of a way to win, being down 2-0. Then, in close games, mind you, then Horton getting injured, getting concussed the way he did, killing Vancouver, to lose in Vancouver, to kill them in Boston, to then win in Vancouver with Nathan Horton pouring the water on the Vancouver ice. Oh, so fun, so great. And, of course, not to mention Vancouver then burning down their city because they lost. Such a Vancouver, such a Canadian thing to do. But then you get the 0-3 Pats. That game against Carolina was wild. Again, another back and forth. It wasn't as, I would say, I don't want to say glamorous as Super Bowl 49, just because, but it was back and forth, man. New England takes, no one scores in the first quarter. New England takes the lead. Then all hell breaks loose. Halftime, third quarter, nothing happens. Fourth quarter, all hell breaks loose once again. That game was wild. And if it wasn't for John effing Casey kicking the ball out of bounds, I don't know if we would be talking about a game that finished in regulation, because New England somehow, some way, had the luck on their side with John Casey kicking the ball out of bounds. Brady spotted at their own 40, marches down, gets Vinatieri into field goal range, who had never made a kick in Houston up until that moment. Even during the game, never made a field goal up until that Super Bowl winning kick. Funny. Then I picked the 07-08 Celtics, followed up by the 23-24 Celtics. Why do I have the 07-08 Celtics ahead of the 23-24 Celtics? Two reasons. Number one, the 07-08 were basically a collection of my childhood favorite players on one team. I was a huge Kevin Garnett fan when he played for the Timberwolves. I was a huge Ray Allen fan when he played for the Supersonics. And so the fact that we traded for them and got them on this team to then win their very first year, to have the biggest turnaround in NBA history, yeah. It was definitely a team where I loved it. And then the second reason is because, well, right now I didn't want to rank the 23-24 Celtics too high. While I love this team and how great it is to raise banner 18 with Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown, Derek White, Drew Holiday, Al Horford, while it's great to have those guys, and I do love those guys. I mean, come on. I didn't want recency bias to overshadow. And so, listen, if this team, goes back to back next year, let's say, then you know what? I'm probably going to have to reorganize this, because I'm going to love this past team maybe more than next year's team, or I'm going to love this championship more than I did in 07-08. I don't know. But that's the beauty of this. Things change. So I did go with my childhood over the recency, which is the 08 Celtics versus this past Celtics team. Doesn't mean I don't like them any less. Doesn't mean I don't like any of these titles any less. But then with in the 2018 Red Sox at 11, the only reason why, again, these last three doesn't mean that I hate these championships. Absolutely not. I love all of these championships. I love them all. It's just, and trust me, it was hard. It was hard trying to make this ranking. But like I said, I had some stipulations behind it. That 18 Red Sox team was wicked fun. Chris Sale was dominant. Mookie Betts was my favorite player. It was a fun team, man. That outfield, Andrew Benintendi, Jackie Bradley Jr., Mookie Betts, they were just so fun. But they were also just so dominant that by the time they got to the playoffs, while every game was stressful, it was a foregone conclusion. And then, of course, the 04 Pats and the 18 Pats to round it off as, my, 12th and 13 teams. Listen, I loved every single championship. I did. And each one of them has a special place in my heart. No two ways about it. But the 2018 team, that was a fun effing team, man, for New England. I went to a couple of games that year. I actually went to the game where they honored the 2018 Red Sox. So that was a lot of fun, watching the Red Sox come in on a duck boat, holding up the trophy. That was really cool. Steve Pierce, I think, flipped the coin. But the other thing is, too, that team, when they went into Kansas City, no one gave them a shot. No one. And yet they did it. They went out and did it. Tom Brady leaping into the arms of David Andrews with his helmet off after Rex Burkhead punched it in from the goal line to win. And never give Brady a second chance, man, because they had the interception, but D. Effin Ford had to line up offsides. That interception would have sealed the deal, bouncing off of Gronk's hands. But nope. D. Ford lined up offsides. Brady gets a second chance, marches down the field, ties it up. Or no, goes ahead. And then, of course, Kansas City comes down, ties it up. But that's it. Those are my rankings, man. Tell me what your thoughts are. Let me know in the comments below what your thoughts are. Because, listen, the rankings are the rankings. That's how I have them. The last 13 championships have been remarkable, have been so much fun. It's been such a great 2 decades to be a Boston sports fan and to be raised like this. It's fun. And don't get me wrong, like I of course would love a championship every year, because who wouldn't? But I just want my teams to compete. I want my owners to show me that they're going to compete. And when they're talking about going out and being aggressive, going full throttle, burning some cash, you better damn do it. Because we're going to hold you to what you say. And then don't go back and be like, oh, well, that's not what I meant, because that's bull. Come on. We're not stupid people here. We're Boston sports fans. And that's what this show is all about. It's a podcast for the fans, by the fans. So thank you guys for tuning in to another episode of the Boston Sports Summit presented by the Grid Network. I am your host, Tim Barnett. Let me know all your thoughts. Please, if you haven't, like, share, subscribe. If you haven't, give me a follow on my Instagram at Boston Sports Summit, on Twitter at BOS Sports Summit. I'm also up on YouTube, Boston Sports Summit, but every week we go live on the Grid Network's YouTube channel, which is right there. All right. So please like, share, subscribe if you haven't already. Comments help with the algorithm. So thank you so much. And as always, guys, this podcast is a show that covers all Boston sports because it's for you. That's right. It is your one and only podcast for all of Boston sports. Thank you guys for tuning in. Another week, another episode. We will be back next Wednesday talking more Boston sports. See you guys then. Thank you so much, and have a God bless, and have a great rest of your day.